Welcome to the Learner Experience Evolution, a podcast for corporate learning leaders, featuring interviews with change enthusiasts at AllenComm and in the larger corporate L&D community.
Hello, everybody. This is Ron Zamir from AllenComm. I am reaching you today from New York City. This is our third podcast on LX Evolved, where we are really trying to take a tactical look at how change can be driven into our industry. With that, we have a great guest for everybody today, Will Thalheimer. He's the author of CEO's Guide to Training, eLearning, and Work. I have all the proof that I did read the book. I even annotated some of the pages. Hopefully he'll like my questions and I won't be too much of a critic, because I'm not. I am a fan. So again, we're going to try to really attack this field from the tactical point of view. Hopefully we have in our audience a lot of instructional designers, trainers, HR professionals, and you will get a lot out of this. So Will, I'm going to start us off. And I'm going to start us off by asking you, what's your backstory? What got you into this field? What keeps you in this field? And what you enjoy most doing what you're doing?
Oh, sure. Well, my backstory, I have to go back a long way. I think I've been in the field over 35 years, something like that, around 35 years. And I got into it in the beginning. I was actually getting my MBA. And I realized, well, this business stuff is good, but I'm not sure that this is all I want. And so I found this 4-course sequence on instructional design. I took that and I was hooked. And got involved, started working in the field, building simulations to teach leadership training and stuff. Been doing this for a long time. At some point, I decided to get a PhD in human learning. Got that at Columbia University. And then I went out. I actually worked for a while as a head of a leadership development product line. And at that point, I said, hey, I noticed in our field we were jumping from one fad to another and holding on sanctimoniously to some things that didn't work that well. And I said, what this field needs is somebody to sort of bridge the gap between the research side and the practice side. So I went out on my own. I formed Work Learning Research. I had big ideas for it, and started doing that work, helping organizations build more effective learning interventions based on the learning sciences. And I've done that for a long time. In Work Learning Research, I've been doing it for 23 years. I did work at 2 other companies along the way. And what I do is I help companies build more effective learning interventions, help a lot with learning evaluation. People may know me for my book on performance-focused learner surveys, or LTEM, the Learning Transfer Evaluation Model. But the whole goal really has been to help learning professionals build more effective learning interventions.
I bow down to your expertise, Will, and I'm going to take you now to the nitty-gritty of what we're trying to learn here. So let's talk about change, and I'm going to be a bit predisposed to say that my experience working with so many learning and development groups in so many big companies is that we are sometimes challenged with change. What have you seen on how L&D departments, HR leaders deal with change? It doesn't have to be technological change, but any change that we could think of that will evolve the way we think about what we do.
So, I sort of see us doing well in some cases and not so well in other cases. So, for example, we survived COVID. We were sort of forced to take everything from the classroom and put it online, and we did okay in that. We weren't great, but we did okay. We got through that, and now we're exploring more and more how to teach online, how to engage online, etc. AI, we're beginning to use that, right? Not always successfully, but we're trying it. So in those instances, we are adapting to change. Now, real innovation, though, really, creating better benefits, better productivity, better performance, that's a lot harder. And I think we could do a lot better with that, frankly. I think there's really maybe 3 or 4 reasons why we're not doing as well as we could. One, Um, to be really good innovators, you have to understand the fundamentals of your craft. And we're not always up to speed on the learning sciences or the performance sciences. The best of us are. The best of us are. We're building more realistic practice into our programs, using retrieval practice, spacing effect, context alignment, things like that. But a lot of us are not still using those. So that's one thing, the learning sciences. Another problem is measurement. We're still not doing great
Yeah.
measurement. And if you're going to innovate, innovators know you got to try stuff out and you have to get feedback. You have to get valid feedback on how well you're doing. And our uh, the data we get is not great. In fact, I think I say in the book that learning evaluation or learning measurement is the root of all evil in the L&D field. To be a little provocative, because we're not
Yeah.
getting good data.
Yeah, and that's a great point because we're gonna hone down on the issue of measurement. Can you kind of talk a little bit about, because again, we're trying to give people the tips and tricks or the insights. I don't think it's a trick. It's the insights that we've picked up over the years. You know, we've had to really be a partner as AllenComm in understanding where companies are right now, their comfort zone, and then helping them move to the edges of that zone so they can innovate. What are some of the convenient conveyances that you see that help companies, to help L&D teams move themselves farther along? That is not a revolution, but helps them evolve.
Uh, well, what I've seen that's most effective is really sort of educating yourselves,
Yeah,
right?
so a lot of self learning.
Self-learning, or sometimes we, the trainers, in the training field, get the least training. So we need to,
Hmm.
uh, be open to more educational opportunities for ourselves, bringing people in that have that expertise. Um, one of the things that I've seen work really well, I call it a learning audit workshop. So
Okay.
instead of going to a training and learning about all the different learning science factors, um, you know, get somebody who has learning science expertise to work with you and together audit your own learning program. So I did this for the first time with the Navy SEALs, and they wanted a research-based analysis of their 65-week training program for the new recruits. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to go analyze the whole thing, right? But we created a 3-day workshop where we talked about retrieval practice. And then I said, I got all their instructional designers, all their instructors who were Navy SEALs, got them in the room and said, okay, how are you doing with retrieval practice? What are you doing well? What are you not doing so well? How are you doing with the spacing effect? How are you using that well? How are you not using that well? How are you using simulation? Um, how are you using that well? How are you not using it well? And we went through that for 2 days. And we had stickies all over the gritty
Yeah.
classrooms of the SEALs. And then I said, okay, now that you see what you got, what do you want to do with it? And they were like, oh, well, we want to make some changes. And here's the stuff we want to keep because that's really aligned with the research. Here's some stuff we don't want to keep. So that is one of the best ways that I've seen to sort of leverage uh, change from a practical standpoint. And I compare this to me before doing audits on my own. I would come in and I'd sit in the classroom, I'd look at an e-learning and I would give people feedback on that. And I thought that was great. But this sort of forced me to see and involve other people. And then there's a lot more buy-in. So I
Yeah.
really think it's like a diving in, looking at your own stuff, being open to having it be both good and bad, keeping the good stuff and improving the stuff that's not working that well.
Yeah. I think it's been challenging. I think every single learning leader I've had to deal with over the past 15 years has always been healthily unsatisfied. And I think that's a good starting point, that feeling we can do better, that feeling that, and it's not just I'm not getting enough resources, I wish I had more people, but just that idea that we've been doing this onboarding the same way for so long. Our leadership matrix really hasn't changed, but our the age of our leaders is changing. What I've seen, which sets a lot of people up for success, and I wonder, and I'll ask for your comment, is knowing where to stretch. Sometimes the conscious decision is not to change too much, but to change in something specific. We've seen so many projects start and fizzle when they've tried to jump to, let's say, VR and AR, because it
Mm.
makes a lot of sense, especially in the manufacturing setting. But then we've seen clients who take that concept and move it into a smaller web-based simulation where you can use hotspots or even QR codes to kind of introduce visualization and models into the real life. So I wonder if you can share from your history some little things that people have done that have helped them stretch their boundaries.
Well, first of all, I love your story, and it goes back to understanding the fundamentals. Maybe we can't do VR, but what is it about VR that works really well? And can we do that at a sort of lower level of production value, cost, etc.? Um, so people trying stuff out. And one thing to experiment with is scenario questions. I used to use these, not just me, but my team, when I worked for a company called the Strategic Management Group, we would build simulations to simulate leadership situations. And I started using them then, and I found them really valuable. And what they do is they put people in a context, like a performance context that's realistic. You give people both relevant information and non-relevant information, so they have to sort of know what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. And building scenario questions is it's not as easy as it looks. You look at a scenario question, you go, oh, we could do that. It's not as easy as it looks, but it's a relatively low cost or reasonable cost solution to really ramping things up to that context-based kind of learning that we really want.
Yeah. We've when you talk about scenario questions, and I'm going to talk about sometimes how we overtrain in a minute. Um, we've seen some great examples from coming from our customers who spend more time up front asking their audience, even if it's on a kind of a focus group level, what they want to see differently. Not about what they want to learn, because we do gap analysis all the time, but how they want to learn. And I think that is one of the areas that L&D can evolve tactically, is when you are more attentive to the delivery model than the content. We tend to focus a lot on content,
Yeah.
but I think there's a lot of variability in delivery. You talked about scenarios. You mentioned your SEAL story. Um, and, the setting yourself up for success, I think, starts with how you apply governance to how you work with the business teams you have to train. It's not just what you ask them, but it's also how much you let them give real feedback and how that feedback changes your approach to that learning audience. I think
Yeah.
we tend to have a lot of hammers and our nails look very similar.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we're moving toward, and we should accelerate this trend, is not just focusing on what content to teach, but also thinking about the situations that people are working in, the work context situation, really understanding that at a deeper level in our analysis. Really important to do that. And when we're asking like folks for input,
Mhm.
we have to do that in a way that guides them to the deeper wisdom, the salient things that are really making a difference. Because there's a tendency sometimes um, people see things at a sort of surface level. And to do really good deep analysis, you really got to push them. You have to understand a little bit about what their situation is and then push them to really get to
Yeah.
sort of the heart of the matter.
Yeah, and I do want to, an important caveat, we know how reactive training departments are, learning and development teams are. There's not always time for that. So that's why I like the term governance. At AllenComm, we spend a lot of time making sure if we can't be specific in helping them evolve to a certain audience, do they have a governance model, i.e. an approach on how the intake work that allows them to create more variability or space things out right so they can try different things. I want to move us to the issue of, and this has come up in in your book and a lot of other places, that we sometimes overtrain. it's not the lack of training that is the bane of our industry, but maybe it's the overtraining. Can you share some of your observations
Yeah.
on what the negative aspects of overtraining are, but where does that give us opportunity to change in a positive manner?
Yeah. So in the book, I have two chapters that sort of contrast each other. One says, "Hey,
Hmm.
there's a lot of research that shows that training works, and we
Hmm.
as L&D professionals are getting better year after year." But
Yeah.
there's also a chapter that says, "Hey, one of the big myths out there is that training can solve all your problems." And so we get often called upon as order takers.
Hmm.
Some organizational stakeholder says, "Hey, we need a training course," and we, in our wisdom, say, "Ooh, we can help." But then it becomes tricky. How do we make sure that we are providing them what's really needed? Because sometimes it's not a training issue. Sometimes maybe job aids would be quicker, more useful, etc. So that's a common problem. Um, One of the solutions to that, and I think you hinted at it, was we need to have an intake process of their request
Yeah.
that gets us all thinking beyond training, gets us thinking about training and making that the best possible, but also thinking about what other options are there. So I think a process to get people aware of some of the things they may not normally be thinking about is useful. In fact, I have a whole chapter in the book saying, "Hey, here's a new intake process that gets your stakeholders thinking beyond training."
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think pre-assessments are a great way to go. I mean, I look at the world of systems training. I hope some of our viewers are involved with system adoption and training, where we've been doing the same, see it, try it, do it almost on every single um, aspect. I think one of the biggest innovations I've seen that I think are influencing our LX design, we see it in all the new LXPs that are coming out, is that we are enabling self-assessments and pre-assessments. Not as a way to score a person, but to let the learner navigate their own direction in sometimes even a non-linear manner. Um, and I definitely hope that people take to heart that when we meet the learner at his point of need, we're getting so much more engagement and motivation, which we lose really quickly when any one of us as adults has to go through something that we think we know. Even if we don't know it well, it does create a barrier. And I think that also leads to the overtraining we talked about.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about partnerships? You do a great job. What are the critical partnerships? If you had to pick three partnerships you have to do as a learning department, where should you focus your energy? How would you rank the first, second, or third, or the first two in that area?
So, um, yeah, we're not alone. First of all, we have to work with each other, right? So that's one key. How do we work together? Um, the other one is with our senior folks, and the other one is with our sponsors, the people that are asking us for uh, delivery options. Um, I think they're all important depending on your situation. One of the things I try to do in the book is to get senior folks. I write the book as if I'm writing to a CEO. And I say, "Hey, CEO, this is all the things you need to think about."
Sure.
And the goal for that is that to give them a better understanding so that they can manage us better, that they can partner with us better. I don't think that that's the full solution to our empowerment, and we need to be empowered. We have to be really successful in what we do. There's a lot of complexity behind it. If we are too limited, then we're not going to be as successful as we want to be. So we need empowerment. One way we can push senior leaders to understand and partner with us better, but we also have to take some responsibility as well. One of the reasons we are not able to change as well as we want is we sort of self-sabotage ourselves and see ourselves as subordinates, right?
Yeah.
And I think we need to sort of develop our own power, our own rigorous practices. If a company asks an architect to build a building, the architect does not uh, skimp on things like, making sure the building's going to stand up in a windstorm or something like that. That's something that architects do. They feel a moral, ethical responsibility, and we have some things that we should be insistent upon. So we need to empower ourselves with rigorous practices as well,
Yeah.
and
Well,
not, the key thing I want to say here is it really does have to be a partnership.
yeah. Yeah.
We
Well,
shouldn't be. Yeah.
I kind of want to move us along. I think we kind of alluded to the measurement challenge,
Hmm.
and I think it's easy to say that we're good at testing, but not so good at measurement. So as we near kind of the end of the podcast, I would love to hear what are your main suggestions for learning organizations on measurement? And then we're going to get to my favorite question at the end about, our kids in this industry. But let's talk really succinctly about measurement and then move to uh,
Sure.
our next generation of learning professionals.
So, first of all, the first thing to know about measurement is most people in our field are not very happy with what we're able to do. But don't beat yourselves up because we're all in that boat. When I was at Tier 1, we did a global survey of L&D professionals. We asked them, are you able to do the learning measurement you want to do? And only 65% of us said, no, we're not able to do what we want to do. So don't beat yourself up. That's the number one thing. But then we got to go beyond what we're doing now, and the goal, I teach a workshop called the LTEM Boot Camp. And it's basically talking about LTEM, but some of the fundamentals of learning evaluation. And we really need to understand some things at a deep level, like people learn and remember. Well, that has a lot of implications for how we measure. So we have to get
Yeah,
down at a deep level, understand some of these fundamentals so we can make good decisions about it. We need, mostly what we're doing is poorly designed smile sheets. So a
yeah,
great place to start is using better learner
yeah,
surveys that are focused on learning effectiveness.
yeah. I mean, I think we've learned, and I really encourage, our peers and even myself inside Allen, is if you can get to measurement, spend that effort understanding your audience better. I think that the source of innovation, the source of creating better learning experiences, is really getting that feedback from your audience. I think companies like Qualtrics and others have done a great job helping companies understand their external audience. I think L&D is situated well to be part of that value chain and helping understanding the internal audience that serves the company. Let me go to my favorite question. Okay, and people that know me know this. Uh, I'll say openly, I've been, thinking, are my kids going to get it into this industry? Knowing what we know today. So it's a two-part question. What would you tell yourself from the future going back? What would you advise yourself to do when you entered this career? And where do you see the future of this whole field for our kids and our next generation?
Well, I could be, in denial, but I like our field. We help people do better work. We
Yeah.
help organizations be more effective. So to me, it's sort of a noble cause. And
Hmm.
you and I have both met a lot of people along the way, right? And most of us are really good people and we want to do well, and we're doing, really good work. So there's sort of the values part of it is a good thing. Um, you know, uh, yeah, I think it's a great field to go into. So yeah, I'm never going to push my daughter to go into our field or anything like that. The kids ought to decide what they want to do,
Yeah, of
but
course.
but at the same time, I think it's a worthwhile field, and I think
Yeah.
there is worries that AI is going to take all our jobs. I don't see that. We'll adapt. We'll figure out how to use it. There'll be work for us to do. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to end with a positive note, and as I thank you for your time, is I do believe that we touch that curve of change because we're a bridge. We're a bridge between the people in our organization and the objectives of the organization. We're a bridge between the people in our organization and the new technologies that they have to learn to use. And I think being in that central nexus between those two forces, I think is a great place to be. I do believe that young people who care about how people are motivated, who want to have better leaders, who want to see technology adopted better by their organization, are the people that are at L&D. So, I think we have some really smart young people entering our field. So, Will, with that, I'm going to thank you. I recommend people to read the book. I recommend. I love the chapter on the myths that we have in our industry, but also the positive outlook on how to fix those issues. So with that, this is a wrap for our third chapter in LXC Evolved. And again, we love your feedback. This is a tactical approach to help you in your job. So we feel good, you feel good, and there's some good content out there that is adapted to us as learning professionals. So, Will, thank you again for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm honored to be one of your first guests. So thanks, Ron.
You got it.
Thank you for joining the Learner Experience Evolution. All episodes will be posted on the AllenComm website, or you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Please reach out to info@allencom.com with any requests or questions.